Alright, guys, we're getting started. Let me just make sure the stream is working fine. And let's do a test of YouTube 1. Just gonna check if the YouTube comment section is working fine. Yep, it's working. Alright, what is going on, everyone? Let me just lower the sound volume. What is going on, people? Today is, well, another Saturday stream. Stream is supposed to be just engaging with Marxist / socialist theory. That's what's gonna happen. So last week we talked about reading some more Marx. So let's see, what are we reading today? Writings on trade unions and such. Alright, the First International. Trade unionism. Let's see. I think we did get fairly deep into dialectics. Didn't get deep enough over there. On to during the method of political economy. Right. Thesis on Feuerbach, we did read that. Anti-Düring. Oh, this is... Ooh. Whoa. This is pretty long. Let's see. Engels' definition in anti-Düring. Dialectics, negation of a negation. Okay, that's one thing to read. Let's see, anti-imperialism and Marxism in Africa. This is another thing we talked about reading this week, so let's see if there is anything interesting that we can find that we want to read. Kwame Nkrumah can be very high level. It's definitely something, it's a very challenging stuff, I think, at least for me. Brian Bunting, Govan Mbeki, I believe this is the father of Thabo Mbeki, Henry Winston, Baruch Herson, Julius Nyerere. Good governance for Africa. Interesting. Patrice Lumumba. Patrice Lumumba was not really a Marxist. How did this work out for Lumumba? They were only communists who were helping you, comrade. Should have sided with them. Samora Machel is one we talked about last week. I mean, Fanon is the sort of the main one that people go to, right? National liberation struggles, Algeria, Somalia. Oh, this is interesting. The documents of ANC, South African Communist Party. C.L.R. James was Caribbean, not African. Mahmoud Mamdani, know him. Paulo Freire, Christopher Saunders, Kenan Malik. All cultures are not equal. All right. Let's see. What is Nkrumah's works? I speak of freedom, neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, African socialism revisited, introduction, the mechanisms. Okay, so this is a book, but it's not fully here. The mechanisms of neocolonialism. All right. I think I have an idea of what we're going to be reading today. We're going to read some Julius Nyerere and Nkrumah. Alright. Let's start with the... Let's make sure... Oh, let me just... I have a check link for reading link in chat. Alright. Yeah, let me do this. Let me just put the link. So right now we're reading biography of Julius Nyerere. Reading now. Alright, so I just posted that link. Let me pin this message. And I copy this and post it to the YouTube stream as well. Julius Nyerere. Let me just check this. All right. Just give me a few more minutes. Let's just get it set up. Stream is working fine, I think. Yep, stream is working fine. All right, so just gonna get started. Yes, okay. thinking. All right, let's see. So we're going to, as I said, read Julius Nyerere and Kwame Nkrumah. So let's start here. Julius Nyerere, former president of Tanzania. So feeding into kind of my Twitch channel name, doing my research. This is also kind of trying to me being a little bit cheeky and being like, all right, let's do some research. And that's what I'm hoping to do here, is just do some research and feel like within the socialist and Marxist tradition, especially the people in the West, don't really give enough time to the African Marxists and socialists, and I think that's a real shame. I think we should be reading more of those writers, and they're wonderful. So that's what the goal of this is, and today we're going to start off reading Julius Nyerere. Nyerere was a former president of Tanzania, an African socialist and anti-colonial activist. That's what I know about him so far. I don't know anything beyond that. Right. All right, so I can't do that. So let's do some basic overview of Nyerere. We're not going to read the entire Wikipedia, obviously. Just going to read his intro of the Wikipedia just to set the groundwork. Really, nothing beyond that at the moment. Oh, just give me a second before I forget this. Streamlabs. Let me just reset my follower goal, because Streamlabs has this thing. I set daily follower goals, and if I don't reset it daily, it doesn't show when I get a follower. So let me just update this. Set goal, end goal. Daily follower goal. 20, okay, 04, 30, 0, 2, 3. All right, that should have just reset it. Even though there's not much of a difference visually, it makes a lot of difference in keeping track of it. All right, so as I was mentioning, Julius Nyerere, former president of Tanzania, anti-colonial activist, politician, and political theorist. He governed Tanganyika as a prime minister from 1961-62, then as a president 62 to 64. Okay, so Tanganyika was the name of I suppose the colonial name of Tanzania. Sovereign comprising of mainland part of Tanzania that existed in 1961. First became within the Commonwealth of Nations a year later. Right. One thing I'm always curious about when I'm reading about these anti-colonial activists is are the parties from that time still active, like CCM, Party of the Revolution. Oh wow, it is. It's not only just active. It's the party in Tanzania. Party of the Revolution, Chadema, is a party for democracy and progress. It's a conservative party. Membership 25 million people. Hmm. Julius Nyerere, Ali Hassan Mawini. What is the demographic makeup of Tanzania? Let's see, economics and infrastructure, demographics. Let's see, demographics, according to 2012 census, 44 million people, okay. Under 15%, 15 age group is 44%. Okay, so there is definitely a demographics advantage coming up for Tanzania. Just because of the young people being that big of a share of the population. Approximately 70% of the population is rural, although this percentage has been declining since 1967. Economic center in Dodoma is located in Central House, the National Assembly. The mortality rate was 335 deaths per thousand since independence. Yeah, so this is a really interesting thing, and that is kind of echoed across all colonial possessions of the colonial masters, that you will see child mortality was extremely high in almost all these places, like 335 children born in every 1,000 children in former Tanzania or Tanganyika were dying, whereas now it's dropped to 62 per 1,000 births. Right, so there's a region of the largest town. Dar es Salaam has 4.36 million people. All right, this is what I was interested in looking at, is what is the ethnic background of the population. Not religion, but ethnic. 125 ethnic groups. Sukuma, Nyambizi, Chaga, Haya people each have population exceeding 1 million. Approximately 90% are of native African descent, with a small number of Arab, European, and Asian descent. The majority of Tanzanians, including Sukuma and Nyambizi, are Bantu. Okay, alright. The population also includes people of Arab and Indian origins, and small European and Chinese communities. Many also identify as Shirazis. Thousands of Arabs and Indians were massacred during the Zanzibar Revolution in 1964. As of 1994, the number 50,000. 10,000 Europeans lived in the Tanzania. Zanzibar Revolution. What is this? Some albinos in Tanzania have been victims of violence in recent years. Zanzibar, Tanzania, Zanzibar. Okay, Zanzibar are islands. Sultan of Zanzibar is mainly Arab government by the island's majority black. Ethnically diverse. Zanzibar was an ethnically diverse state consisting of a number of islands on the state coast of Tanganyika. It had become fully independent in 1963 with responsibility for its own defense and foreign affairs as a result of the Britain given up its protectorate over it. In a series of parliamentary elections preceding this change, the Arab minority succeeded in retaining hold on power. It had inherited from Zanzibar's former existence as an overseas territory of Oman. Second, got a message. Oh my god, just got wind of some Twitter drama. It's internal DSA drama, but it's always fun. Let's be honest, we all like being saucy bitches on Twitter, right? Alright. Let's see, we were reading about the Zanzibar Revolution. Zanzibar Revolution of 1964, Comrades. Is... Where the hell did my browser go? Here we go, alright. So, frustrated over the underrepresentation in Parliament. In July 1963 election, the African Afro-Shirazi Party, early in the morning of 12 January 1964, led by John Okello, the ASP youth leader of Pemba branch, mobilized 600 to 800 men on the main island of Unguja. Having overrun the country's police force and appropriated their weaponry, the insurgents proceeded to Zanzibar town, where they overthrew the Sultan and his government. They proceeded to loot Arab and South Asian owned properties and businesses, and then rape and murder Arab and Indian civilians on the island. The death toll is disputed, with estimates ranging from several hundred to 20,000. The moderate ASP leader, its Afro-Shirazi party leader, Abid Karume, became the country's new president and head of state. The new government's apparent communist ties concerned Western government, and Zanzibar lay within the British sphere of influence. The British government drew a number of intervention plans. However, the feared communist government never materialized, because the British and American citizens were successfully evacuated. The plans were not put into effect. The Eastern Bloc powers of East Germany and Soviet Union, along with the anti-Soviet People's Republic of China, immediately recognized the country and its sent advisors. Background. Aftermath. A revolutionary counter was established by ASP and Umma parties to act as interim government, with Karume heading the council as president and Babu serving as Minister of External Affairs. The country was renamed People's Republic of Zanzibar and Pemba. The new government's first act was to permanently banish the Sultan and to ban the ZNP and ZPP. Seeking to distance himself from the volatile Okello, Karume quietly sidelined him from the political scene, although he was allowed to retain his well-bestowed title of Field Marshal. Soon began reprisals against the Arab and Asian population of Unguja, carrying out beatings, rapes, murders, and attack on property. He claimed in radio speeches to have killed or imprisoned 10,000 of his enemies and stooges. And this is Karume. But actual numbers of death greatly vary, from hundreds to 20,000. Some Western newspapers gave figures of 2,000 to 4,000, but the higher numbers may be inflated by Okello's own broadcast and exaggerated report in some Western and Arab news media. The killing of Arab prisoners and their burial in mass graves was documented by an Italian film crew filming from a helicopter for Africa Audio. And the sequence of film comprises the only known visual document of the killings. Many Arabs fled to safety in Oman, although by Okello's order no Europeans were harmed. The post-revolution violence did not spread to Pemba. By 3rd February, Zanzibar was finally returning to normality, and Karume had been widely supported by people as their president. Police presence was back on the streets, looted shops were reopening, unlicensed arms were being surrendered by the civilian populace. The revolutionary government announced that its political prisoners, numbering 500, would be tried by special courts. Okello formed the Freedom Militia Military Force, a paramilitary unit made up of its own supporters, which patrolled the streets and looted Arab property. The behavior of Okello's supporters, his violent rhetoric, Ugandan accent, and Christian beliefs were alienating many and largely moderate Zanzibari and Muslim ASP. And by March Many members of FMF had been disarmed by Karume's supporters and Umma Party's militia. On 11th March, Okello was officially stripped of his rank of Field Marshal and was denied entry when trying to return to Zanzibar from trip to the main island. He was deported to Tanganyika and then to Kenya before returning destitute to his native Uganda. In April, the government from the People's Liberation Army completed the disarmament of Okolo's remaining FMF militia. On 26 April, Karume announced that a union had been negotiated with Tanganyika to form new country of Tanzania. The merger was seen by contemporary media as a means of preventing communist subversion of Zanzibar. At least one historian states that it may have been an attempt by Karume, a moderate socialist, to limit the influence of the radical left-wing Umma Party. Babu had come close to the Chinese diplomats who had arranged for several shipments of arms to be sent to Zanzibar to allow the Umma Party to have a paramilitary wing. Both Karume and President Nyerere of Tanganyika were concerned that Zanzibar was starting to become a hotspot of Cold War tensions as Americans and British diplomats competed for influence within the Soviet, Chinese, and the East German diplomats, and having a union with the non-aligned Tanganyika was considered the best way of removing Zanzibar from world spotlight. However, many of the Umma Party's socialist policies on health, education, and social welfare were adopted by the government. Interesting. One of the main results of the revolution in Zanzibar was to break the power of the Arab Asian ruling classes, who had held it for 2,200 years. Despite the merger with Tanganyika, Zanzibar retained a revolutionary council and House of Representatives, which was until 1992 run by on a one-party system and has power over domestic matters. Our domestic matter is the domestic government is led by the president of Zanzibar, Karume being the first holder of this office. The government used the success of the revolution to implement reforms across the island. Many of these involved removal of powers from the Arabs. Zanzibar Civil Force, for example, became an almost entirely African organization, and land was redistributed from Arabs to Africans. The revolutionary government also instituted social reforms such as free healthcare, opening up education to African students, which had occupied only 12% of secondary schools before the revolution. The government sought help from Soviet Union, German Democratic Republic, and People's Republic of China for funding of several projects and military advice. The failure of several GDR-led projects, including New Zanzibar Project in 1968, urban redevelopment scheme to provide new apartments for all Zanzibaris, led to Zanzibar focusing on Chinese aid. The post-revolution government was accused of draconian controls on personal freedoms and travel and exercised nepotism in appointments of political industrial offices. The new Tanzanian government being powerless to intervene. Dissatisfaction with the government came to a head with the assassination of Karume on April 7, 1972, which was followed by weeks of fighting between pro and anti-government forces. A multi-party system was eventually established in 1992, but the Zanzibar remains dogged by allegations of corruption and vote rigging through the 2020 election. Though the 2010 general election was seen to be considerable improvement, the revolution itself remains an interest for Zanzibaris and academics. Historians have analyzed the revolution as having racial and social bases, with some stating that the African revolutionaries represent the proletariat rebelling against the ruling and trading classes, represented by Arabs and South Asians. Others discount this theory and present it as a racial revolution that was exacerbated by economic disparity between races. Within Zanzibar, the revolution is a key cultural event marked by the release of 545 prisoners on its 10th anniversary and a military parade on the 40th. Zanzibar Revolution Day has been designated as a public holiday by the government of Tanzania. It is celebrated on 12th January each year. Alright, cool. I don't know why I just went on this offshoot. Was a socialist. Umma party was a socialist political party. It was founded in 1963 by disaffected socialist Arabs from the ruling Zanzibar Nationalist Party. It was led by Abdul Rahman Muhammad Babu and supported the Afro-Shirazi Party during the 19th. Alright, so this is a sort of left-wing Marxist organization. Abdul Rahman Muhammad Babu was a Zanzibar-born Marxist and Pan-African nationalist. All right, I don't know. We just took a pretty deep turn. Yeah, I was just looking at the breakdown. So Zanzibar has 125 ethnic groups, primarily a Christian country. And then, just a minute, what just came up over here? Sorry guys, GST a minute. Alright, where did we go? There we go. Bongo movie is the Bongo Flava. Oh, sorry, the Bongo movie is the name of the local movie industry. Alright, we took a pretty off turn. We were learning about Julius Nyerere, who governed Tanganyika and then formed a union with Zanzibar to form Tanzania. Born in Butiama, Mara, then in British colony of Tanganyika, Nyerere was son of Zanaki chief. After completing his schooling, he studied at Makerere College in Uganda and then Edinburgh University in Scotland. In 1952, he returned to Tanganyika, married and worked as a school teacher. In 1954, he helped form TANU, through which he campaigned for Tanganyikan independence from the British Empire. I might be pronouncing Tanganyikan wrong, but so it is. Influenced by the Indian independence leader Mahatma Gandhi, Nyerere preached non-violence to achieve this aim. Elected to the Legislative Council in 1958 and 9 elections, Nyerere led the TNU to victory at the 1960 general election, becoming Prime Minister. Negotiations with the British authorities resulted in Tanganyikan independence in 61. In 62, Tanganyika became a republic, with Nyerere elected as its first president. His administration pursued decolonization and Africanization of civil service by promoting unity between indigenous African and the country's Asian and European minorities. He encouraged formation of a one-party state and unsuccessfully pursued the Pan-Africanist formation of an East African federation with Uganda and Kenya. In 1963, mutiny within the army was suppressed with British assistance. Following the Zanzibar Revolution, the island of Zanzibar was unified with Tanganyika to form Tanzania. After this, Nyerere placed a growing emphasis on national self-reliance and socialism. Although his socialism differed from that promoted by Marxism-Leninism, Tanzania developed close relationship with Mao Zedong's China. In 1967, Nyerere issued Arusha Declaration, which outlined his vision of Fujama. Banks and other major industries and companies were nationalized. Education and healthcare were significantly expanded. Renewed emphasis was placed on agricultural development, the formation of communal farms, Although these reforms hampered food production and left areas dependent on food aid. His government provided training and aid to anti-colonialist groups fighting white minority rule throughout South Africa, and oversaw Tanzania's 1978-79 war with Uganda, which resulted in overthrow of Ugandan President Idi Amin. In 1985, Nyerere stood down and was successfully succeeded by Ali Hassan Mwinyi, who reversed many of Nyerere's policies. He remained chair of Chama cha Mapinduzi, that is CCM, until 1990, supporting a transition to multi-party system, and later served as mediator in attempt to end the Burundian civil war. Nyerere was a controversial figure. Across Africa, he gained widespread respect as an anti-colonialist, and in power received praise for ensuring that, unlike many of its neighbors, Tanzania remained stable, unified in decades following independence. His construction of the one-party state and use of detention without trial led to accusation of dictatorial governance, while he has also been blamed for economic mismanagement. He is held in deep respect within Tanzania. He is often referred to by the Swahili honorific Mwalimu, teacher, and described as the father of the nation. Political ideology. Form of African socialism known as Ujamaa. Alright. I don't think so. Alright, so we just looked at the overall sort of understanding of Nyerere. So now we also know what this is, the Arusha Declaration, which is kind of his laying out of the Ujamaa ideology, I suppose. So let's actually limit our reading to number 1, biography of Julius Nyerere, and then number 2, let's then switch to his Arusha Declaration. Have you ever made pizza by yourself? No, not by myself. Don't really think. What do I mean? Sorry, just seeing this message. Worst username ever. Sorry, guys. Just checking something out. Alright, so let's read the biography of Julius Nyerere, one of Africa's most respected figures. Julius Nyerere was a politician of principle and intelligence. Known as Mwalimu, or teacher, he had a vision of education that was rich with possibility. Julius Kambarage Nyerere was born in on April 13th. So his birthday just passed. Sorry. Just a minute. Just you wait. Whoa, just a minute. Just got an interesting notification. What is going on? Interesting. Alright, just got a notification of one of the authors I really like, Claudia Gray, Star Wars writer. Just Seems like she's coming up with a new book. Sorry, that was a weird jump. Alright, let's read about Nyerere. Julius Nyerere, I'm butchering the name, please forgive me. He was born on April 13, 1992 in Buriyama in the eastern shore of Lake Victoria in northwest Tanganyika. His father was a chief of a small Zanaki tribe. He was 12 before he started school. He had to walk 26 miles to Mimosa to do so. God damn it. 26 miles. Fuck. Later, he transferred for his secondary education to the Tabora Government Secondary School. His intelligence was quickly recognized by the Roman Catholic fathers who taught him. He went on with their help to train as a teacher at Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda. On gaining his certificate, he taught for 3 years and then went on a government scholarship to study history and political economy for his Master of Arts at the University of Edinburgh. He was the first Tanzanian to study at a British university and only second to gain a university degree outside Africa. God damn it. Wow. In Edinburgh, partly through his encounter with Fabian thinking, Nyerere began to develop his particular vision of connecting socialism with African communal living. At some point, I'm going to do a full deep dive on Fabian socialism. It's largely a failed version of socialism at this point, even as a thought, but it had a very interesting grip on the anti-colonial sort of center-left Jawaharlal Nehru / Nyerere types, right? Oh god damn it! I just forgot to do something. I'm supposed to post about this on my Twitter. All right, let's take care of that. Just give me 2 minutes. Let me just make a quick post because I know some people who would be interested in sort of sitting by as I read and / discuss this, so on and so on. It's gonna take me a minute. Dun, 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 dun. Alright, so just if you're dropping by by now, we're reading about Julius Nyerere and his Arusha declaration. That's going to be the reading task of today. Alright, so the tweet has been sent out. Let's put this up over here. God damn it, what the fuck just happened? Did the stream just disconnect? Nope. Alright, the stream survived. Thought there for a moment that the stream was disconnecting. Alright, so let's get back to it. Just a reminder, we were just reading Nyerere's sort of quick biography on Marxist.org. The link is in the chat if you want to follow along. So far, we just found out that he was the son of a chief of a small Zanaki tribe. Grew up and was educated at like a Catholic school in Tanganyika. and then went to University of Edinburgh. He was first Tanzanian to study at a British university and only second to gain a degree outside Africa. And he was influenced by Fabian socialist thought, I suppose. That's what we have read in the first few minutes, or like first half an hour or so of this stream, and that's what I've gotten so far. And I went on like this pretty interesting tangent, learning about Tanzania, just like looking at Wikipedia entries, and then the Zanzibaran revolution. Interesting. At some point I'll do a deeper dive on that. All right, let's read this. On his return to Tanganyika, Nyerere was forced by the colonial authorities to make a choice between his political activities and his teaching. He was reported as saying that he was a schoolmaster by choice and a politician by accident, working to bring a number of different nationalist factions into one grouping. He achieved this in 1954 with the formation of TANU, the Tanganyika African National Union. He became president of the union he held until 1977, entered the Legislative Council in 1958, became chief minister in 1960. A year later, Tanganyika was granted internal self-government when Nyerere became premier. Full independence came in December 1961, and he was elected president in 1962. Nyerere's integrity, ability as a political orator and organizer, and readiness to work with different groupings was a significant factor in independence being achieved without bloodshed. In this, he was helped by the cooperative attitude of the last British governor, Sir Richard Turnbull. In 1964, following a coup in Zanzibar, that's the Zanzibaran Revolution, and an attempted coup in Tanganyika, Nyerere negotiated with the new leaders in Zanzibar and agreed to absorb them into the union government. The result was the creation of the Republic of Tanzania. Alright, let's see. So far we just look at a very high level overview of Nyerere. Nyerere, born to the chief of a small Zanaki tribe, goes to school, goes to University of Edinburgh, heavily influenced by Fabian socialists, came back to Tanganyika, became a teacher, then a politician, then formed TANU, the Tanganyika African National Union, became its president, got independence, became the president of Tanganyika, and then joined with Zanzibar to form Tanzania. Ujama, socialism, and self-reliance. Let's read this. As president, Nyerere had to steer a difficult course. By late 1960, Tanzania was one of the world's poorest countries. Like many others, it was suffering from a severe foreign debt burden, a decrease in foreign aid, and a fall in the price of commodities. His solution, the collectivization of agriculture, villagization, and large-scale nationalization, was a unique blend of socialism and communal life. The vision was set out in the Arusha Declaration of 1967, reprinted in Nyerere 1968. The objective of socialism in the United Republic of Tanzania is to build a society in which all members have equal rights and equal opportunities, in which all can live in peace with their neighbors without suffering or imposing injustice, being exploited or exploiting, in which all have a gradually increasing basic level of material welfare before any individual lives in luxury. It's interesting. Specifically this sentence, in which all have a gradually increasing basic level of material welfare before any individual lives in luxury. The focus given the nature of the Tanzania society was on rural development. People were encouraged, sometimes forced, to live and work on a cooperative basis in organized villages or ujama, meaning familyhood in Kiswahili. The idea was to extend traditional values and responsibilities around kinship to Tanzania as a whole. Alright, so people were encouraged to work and live on cooperative basis in organized villages or ujama, which are essentially family units, it seems. Alright, within the declaration, that's the Arusha Declaration. Within the declaration, there was a commitment to raising basic living standards and an opposition to conspicuous consumption and a large private wealth. The socialism he believed was people-centered. Humanness in its fullest sense rather than wealth creation must come first. Societies become better places to the development of people rather than gearing up for production. This was a matter that Nyerere took to be important both in political and private terms. Unlike many other politicians, he did not amass a large fortune through exploiting his position. Alright, so he's saying, it's interesting, it was people-centered, socialism he believed in was people-centered. It's kind of a non sequitur, doesn't really make sense. All socialism is people-centered. Humanness in... This is interesting. Humanness in its fullest sense rather than wealth creation must come first. Still fairly open. Societies become better places through the development of people rather than gearing up of production. Okay. First thing that I totally agree with him. Production can come as needed. The first thing is to keep track of increasing people's... obviously production is also extremely important. You can't redistribute hunger, comrades. You have to be able to build up the productive capacities of your people, of your nation as a whole. The goal of socialism is not to make everyone equally poor. It's to make everyone have basic necessities met and give them the best opportunity of growing and to fully explore their potential. And not in this limited sort of entrepreneurial sense of like, I just built this $1 billion startup. No, not like that. If you have an innate sense of being an artist, right, or a singer or so on, socialism should afford you the best chance at exploring that, at building that, and taking away all the unnecessary things such as, having to work for a living. You would need to still do some work, but you know that there is a certain expectation of comfort that you can demand from your socialist society. All right, my allergies are kicking in. We'll see how far we can go this way before I start sneezing really heavily. All right, let's see. Liberation struggles. Committed Pan-Africanist Nyerere provided a home for a number of African liberation movements, including the African National Congress and Pan-African Congress of South Africa, Frelimo, when seeking to overthrow Portuguese in Mozambique. And Frelimo was Samora Machel's organization or party. Zanla and Robert Mugabe in their struggle to unseat white regime in southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. He also opposed the brutal regime of Idi Amin in Uganda, following a border invasion by Amin in 1978. A 20,000 strong Tanzanian army, along with the rebel group, invaded Uganda. It took the capital Kampala in 1979, restoring Uganda's first president Milton Obote to power. The battle against Amin was expensive and placed a strain on government's finances. There was considerable criticism within Tanzania that he had both overlooked domestic issues and had not paid proper attention to internal human rights abuses. Tanzania was a one-party state, and while there was a strong democratic element in the organization and concerns for consensus, this did not stop Nyerere using the Preventive Detention Act to imprison opponents. In part, this may have been justified by the need to contain divisiveness, but there does appear to have been a disjuncture between his commitment to human rights on world stage and his actions at home. Retirement. In 1985, Nyerere gave up presidency but remained as chair of the party, Chama cha Mapinduzi (CCM). He gradually withdrew from active politics, retiring to his farm in Butiama. In 1990, he relinquished the chairmanship of CCM but remained active on the world stage as the chair of Intergovernmental South Center. One of his last high-profile actions was as the chief mediator in the Burundi conflict. 1996, he died in a London hospital of leukemia on October 14th, 1999. Well, Comrade Nyerere, red salute to you, sir. All right, that was a very brief look at the life of Comrade Julius Nyerere. The next thing is to read the actual Arusha Declaration. This was mentioned in his brief overview of his biography. Nyerere published this in 68, I think, right, or 67, and then republished it in 68. So I think there's 10 parts to it, in which he's essentially laying out his vision on socialism and self-reliance. That's the goal. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just thinking. Sorry. I'm going to take notes. I'm just thinking how I'm going to organize my notes. But I am definitely going to take notes. All right. So, Comrade Julius Nyerere. All right. Just thinking what is the best way to structure my notes. I'm taking my notes on a iPad. You know, the favorite thing of capitalism. Like, if you like socialism, why do you like iPads? Like, fuck off, bro. Just fuck off. Yeah. Alright, so we're going to jump on to reading the Arusha Declaration. Let me just see, not under my books, but under socialism. Alright, so we're going to call it Tanzania. No. Oh my god, I hate this layout scheme of iPads. God damn it. Let's see. What should I call this note that I'm going to be taking these notes in? I suppose I'm just gonna call it, well, I'm just definitely gonna call it the Arusha Declaration Julius Nyerere. Where the hell is a goddamn dash? Fuck. Oh my god, I hate this so much. Alright. Oh god damn it. It is just a simple fucking dash. Piece of shit. Whatever. I'm just gonna use an underscore. Julius Nyerere. Alright, let's get to it, comrades. What am I using? I'm using this. Alright, Julius Nyerere. So Julius Nyerere, the Arusha Declaration and Tanyu's policy on socialism and self-reliance. Tanyu was Tanzanian African National Union. That's what it meant. So let's see. Let me just give it a description in my notes. Nyerere published this as a vision of socialism for Africa in 1967. Alright, let's get to switch this to black. Alright, okay. The policy of Tanyu is to build a socialist state. The principle of socialism, let me just do this. Fucking hell. God. Listen, I love the comrades who maintain the website at marxist.org, but its highlight features are just severely broken. Alright. This coffee is useless. Alright. The policy of TANU, that's Tanzanian African National Union, is to build a socialist state. The principles of socialism are laid down in TANU constitution, and they are as follow. Whereas TANU believes that all human beings are equal, that every individual has a right to dignity and respect, that every citizen is an integral part of the nation and has a right to take an equal part in government at local, regional, and national level, that every citizen has a right to freedom of expression, of movement, of religious beliefs and association within the context of the law, that every individual has the right to receive from society protection of his life, of property held according to law, that every individual has a right to receive a just return for his labor, that all citizens together possess all the natural resources of the country in trust for their descendants, that all citizens together possess all the natural resources of the country in trust for their descendants, that in order to ensure economic justice, the state must have effective control over the principal means of production, that in order to ensure economic justice, the state must have effective control over the principal means of production. Alright, so it's just basic Marxist-Leninist socialist sort of thinking, being like, alright, let's see, if we want to develop our means of production and so on, then we have to at least carry them in a state-oriented way. That it is a responsibility of the state to intervene actively in the economic life of the nation so as to ensure the well-being of all citizens, and so as to prevent the exploitation of one person by another or one group by another, and so as to prevent the accumulation of wealth to an extent which is inconsistent with the existence of a classless society. So it's a pretty radical vision, right? Especially so as to prevent, especially this one, right? I mean, everything else is still pretty simple anti-colonial stuff, no different than what Nehru or anyone in India would have said. I'm just going to edit the stream information really quickly to specify. African socialism. All right, we're back. All right, so interesting. So far he's just saying that, not saying anything really controversial. He's not saying like, let's go and kill all the landlords. Like, he's not going all Mao yet. He's being pretty reasonable. He's saying, hey, resources of a country should be controlled by the people, and their representatives being in the state, thus they should be controlled by the state. Just making some notes. Point number 10. So point number 10 mentions that state should be very involved in economic life. So as to ensure no exploitation, that's garbage. Okay, let's clean this up. No exploitation takes place in line with an ideal of classless society. All right, so just to recap the piece right here. Oh, just remembered something. I haven't updated the reading. All right, so we're reading the Arusha Declaration. So if you want to follow along, let's do this. Reading the Arusha Declaration. Link here. Alright, so I just posted this in YouTube. Just make sure this link is working fine. Nope, of course the link got truncated. God damn it. Let's see. Reading the Arusha Declaration. Link here. All right, so we're good. Arusha Declaration is what we're reading. We just read that it starts off with Tanyu's, with Nyerere, just restating Tanyu, which is Tanzanian African National Union's constitution, which is pretty standard fare Fabian socialist, sort of center-left, left social democratic vision. But there's one thing that I found to be fairly radical, which is it says that it is the responsibility of the state to intervene actively in economic life of the nation so as to ensure the well-being of all citizens, so as to prevent the exploitation of one person by another or one group by another, and so as to prevent the accumulation of wealth to an extent which is inconsistent with the existence of a classless society. This is not standard fare Fabian socialism. This is definitely more radical. You can see the sort of the radical bent of this, because Tanzania was a non-aligned country. They're not taking a side between the USSR or the United States in the Cold War, but nonetheless, this is interesting still. Let's read the next part. All right, god damn it, come on, man. Now, therefore, the principal aims and objects of Tanyu shall be as follow: to consolidate and maintain the independence of this country and the freedom of its people, to safeguard the inherent dignity of the individual in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to ensure that this country shall be governed by a democratic socialist government of the people, to cooperate with all political parties in Africa engaged in the liberation of all Africa, to see the government mobilizes all the resources of this country towards the elimination of poverty, ignorance, and disease, to see that the government actively assists in the formation and maintenance of cooperative organizations, to see that wherever possible the government itself directly participates in the economic development of this country, to see that the government gives equal opportunity to all men and women, irrespective of race, religion, or status. Just a minute, what just came up here? Where were we? Right here. To see that the government eradicates all type of exploitation, intimidation, discrimination, bribery, and corruption. To see that the government exercises effective control over the principal means of production and pursues policies which facilitate the way to collect ownership of the resources of this country. To see that the government cooperates with other states in Africa in bringing about African unity. To see that the government works tirelessly towards world peace and security through the United Nations organization. So yeah, I mean, the full form of UN is UNO, United Nations Organization. Interesting. So these are the principal aims and objectives of Tanyu, which is a lot of good stuff here. Just to highlight, to maintain individual dignity in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Maybe at some point we will read and discuss the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I think it's worth doing that. It's just something that I see everybody mention, but nobody actually takes the time to read it. Number 2, to ensure that the country shall be governed by a democratic socialist government of the people. Interesting. Nothing that I disagree with. To cooperate, interestingly so, to cooperate with all political parties in Africa engaged in the liberation of all Africa. And as we read in the last article about his biography, Tanganyika, and then Tanzania supported a lot of the anti-colonialist, anti-apartheid movements within Africa, with arms sometimes. To see that the government mobilizes towards elimination of poverty, ignorance, and disease. Ignorance being an interesting choice of words. Exists in formation of cooperative organization It's saying that government should intervene to ensure economic development. I agree with that. Give equal respect to everybody. To see that the government exercises effective control over the principal means of production and pursues policies which facilitate the way to collective ownership. Alright, so it's just saying the principal means of production should be cooperatively owned, or rather government owned, state owned. Bring about African unity and to work towards world peace. Fairly radical even within the Fabian socialist tradition. I know it's Fabian socialists were maybe not as radical as others, but credit where it's due. This is definitely not moderate Fabian socialist things like the Nehru socialism. All right, let's see the policy of socialism. Let's read one point at a time. And my throat is drying up. I'm going to grab some water. I'll be back in just in a minute. Be back. Alrighty, I'm back. Let's get back to it. The policy of socialism. We're reading the Arusha Declaration. Absence of exploitation. A truly socialist state is one in which all people are workers, and in which neither capitalism nor feudalism exist. It does not have two classes of people, a lower class composed of people who work for their living and an upper class of people who live on the work of others. In a really socialist country, no person exploits another. Everyone who is physically able to work does so. Every worker obtains a just return for the labor he performs, and the incomes derived from different types of work are not grossly divergent. In a socialist country, the only people who live on the work of others and who have the right to be dependent upon their fellows are small children, people who are too old to support themselves, the crippled, and those whom the state at any one time cannot provide an opportunity to work for their living. Tanzania is a nation of peasants, but is not yet a socialist society. It still contains elements of feudalism and capitalism with their temptations. The feudalistic and capitalistic features of our society could spread and entrench themselves. B. The major means of production and exchange are under the control of the peasants and workers. To build and maintain socialism, it is essential that all major means of production and exchange in the nation are controlled and owned by the peasants through the machinery of their government and their cooperatives. Interesting. Through the machinery of their government and their cooperatives. I'm just going to make a note of this. It is important that means, erase this, that means of production are owned by peasants through their government and cooperative organizations. All right. Further, it is essential that the ruling party should be a party of peasants and workers. The major means of production and exchanges are such that as land, forest, minerals, water, oil, and electricity, news, media, communications, banks, insurance, import and export trade, wholesale trade, iron and steel, machine tools, arms, motor car, cement, fertilizer, textile industries, and any big factory on which a large section of the people depend for their living, or which provides essential components for other industries, large plantations, and especially those which provide raw material essential to important industries. Some of the instruments of production and exchange which have been listed here are already owned or controlled by the People's Government of Tanzania. Alright, he's saying all the important organization, all the important productions and so on, and then things that are industries that employ a decent amount of people, they need to be owned by the People's Government of Tanzania. The existence of democracy, and this is the policy of socialism, part 2. The existence of democracy. A state, The existence of democracy. A state is not socialist simply because its means of production are controlled or owned by the government, either wholly or in large part. If a country is to be socialist, it is essential that its government is chosen and led by the peasants and workers themselves. If the minority governments of Rhodesia or South Africa owned the entire economies of these respective countries, the result would be strengthening of oppression, not the building of socialism. True socialism cannot exist without democracy also existing in the society. Cool. He's completely right. He's saying simply because you have nationalized your industry, it doesn't mean that you are now all of a sudden socialist. Like, there is no button that you can just press and say, now we're socialist. Saying that he's saying that democracy, like the elected government, he's not saying just everybody can elect government. He's saying the peasants and workers are the ones who are electing the government. But even before that, he says that there should be a classless society, that there is no one upper class and one lower class. There's only one class, the working class, where everybody who's able to work should work and earn the money, and they should get just value for their work. All right. So he's saying those workers and peasants should elect their government, and they are the ones who should essentially just represent the society. Socialism is a belief. Socialism is a way of life, and a socialist society cannot simply come into existence. A socialist society can only be built by those who believe in and who themselves practice the principles of socialism. A committed member of TANU will be a socialist, and his fellow socialist, that is his fellow believers in this political and economic system, all those in Africa or elsewhere in the world who fight for the rights of the peasants and workers. The first duty of a TANU member, and especially of a TANU leader, is to accept these socialist principles and to live his life in accordance with them. In particular, a genuine TANU leader will not live off the sweat of another man nor commit any feudalistic or capitalistic actions. The successful implementation of socialist objectives depends very much up to the leaders, because socialism is a belief in a particular system of living, and it is difficult for leaders to promote its growth if they do not themselves accept it. All right. Fairly simple, I think. Nothing very controversial. I would hope nobody finds this very controversial. I think socialism is a way of life. And if you are going to be a party member, you have to be a believer in socialism and you have to practice it. You can't just, ask people to be like, oh, socialism and all that stuff, and then be at complete odds with socialism when we look at your own life, rather. Let's move on. Where did my notes go? God damn it. There we go. Part 3, the policy of self-reliance. Just a minute. We are at war. Tanyu is involved in a war against poverty and oppression in our country. The struggle is aimed at moving the people of Tanzania and the people of Africa as a whole from a state of poverty to a state of prosperity. We have been oppressed a great deal, we have been exploited a great deal, and we have been disregarded a great deal. It is our weakness that has led us to being oppressed, exploited, and disregarded. Now we want a revolution which brings an end to our weakness. So we are never again exploited, oppressed, or humiliated. A poor man does not use money as a weapon. Wow. God damn. A poor man does not use money as a weapon. But it is obvious that in the past we have chosen the wrong weapon for our struggle. Because we chose money as our weapon. We're trying to overcome our economic weakness by using the weapons of the economically strong. Weapons which in fact we do not possess. By our thoughts, words, and actions, it appears as if we have come to the conclusion that without money, we cannot bring about a revolution we're aiming at. It is as if we have said money is the basis of development. Without money, there can be no development. Alright. That is what we believe at present. Tanyu leaders and Tanyu once again, if you're just joining now, is Tanganyika African National Union. This was a party of Julius Nyerere, and yeah, that's just making sure that I'm defining Tanyu whenever I read it. That is what we believe at present. Tanyu leaders and government leaders, Tanyu leaders and government leaders and officials all put great emphasis on the independence on money. The people's leaders always, and the people themselves in Tanyu, NUTA, I'm assuming it's another national organization, NUTA, Parliament, UWT, the cooperatives, the TAPA, and in other national institutions think, hope, and pray for money. It is as if we have all agreed with one voice saying, if we get money, we shall develop. Without money, we cannot develop. In brief, our five-year development plan aims at more food, more education, and better health. But the weapon we have put emphasis upon is money. It is as if we said, in the next 5 years, we want to have more food, more education, and better health. And in order to achieve these things, we shall spend 250 million pounds. We think and speak as if the most important thing to depend upon is money, and anything else we intend to use in our struggle is of minor importance. Damn it, come on. Ugh, this page. There we go. Let me just highlight this again. Oh my god. Marxist.org, Comrades. Something wrong with the website. It doesn't scroll too well. Alright. When a member of parliament says there is a shortage of water in his constituency and he asks the government how it intends to deal with the problem, he expects the government to reply that it is planning to remove the shortage of water in his constituency with money. When another member of parliament asks what the government is doing about the shortage of roads, schools, or hospitals in his constituency, he also expects the government to tell him that it has specific plans to build roads, schools, and hospitals in his constituency with money. When a NUTA official asks the government about its plan to deal with low wages and poor housing, so I guess it's a tenants organization, poor housing of workers, he expects the government to inform him that the minimum wage will be increased and that better houses will be provided for the workers with money. When a TAPA official asks the government of what plans it has to give assistance to many TAPA schools who do not get money, government aid, he expects government to state that it is ready the following morning to give the required assistance with money. When an official of the cooperative movement mentions any problem facing the farmer, he expects to hear the government will solve the farmer's problem with money. In short, for every problem facing our nation, the solution in everybody's mind is money. All right, Comrade Nyerere, if it's not money, please enlighten us on what it is. And I'm genuinely interested in knowing that. Let's see. Okay. Each year, each Ministry of Government makes its estimate of expenditure, the amount of money it will require in the coming year to meet recurrent and development cycles. Only one minister and his ministry make estimates of the revenue, that is the Minister of Finance. Every ministry puts forward very good development plans. When the ministry presents its estimate, it believes that the money is there for the asking, but the Minister of Finance are being obstructive. And regularly each year, Minister of Finance has to tell fellow ministers that there is no money. And each year, the ministers complain about the Ministry of Finance when it trims down their estimate. So far, it's just saying every minister puts out plans that they want to do, developmental and so on plans they're interested in doing. And the Minister of Finance has to meet those needs. So when he or she doesn't come through, the minister who's asking for the money thinks that they are being held up by the Minister of Finance. That's what he's saying essentially. Similar, when the Member of Parliament and other leaders demand that the government should carry out a certain development, they believe that there is a lot of money to spend on such projects, but the government is a stumbling block. Yet such beliefs on part of the ministers, Member of Parliament, and other leaders do not alter the stark truth, which is that government has no money. All right. Let's see the last two paragraphs of this section. There we go. All right. When it is said that the government has no money, what does it mean? It means that the people of Tanzania have insufficient money. The people pay taxes out of very little wealth that they have. It is from these taxes that the government meets its recurrent and development expenditures. When we call on the government to spend more money on development projects, we're asking the government to use more money. And if the government does not have any more, the only way it can do this is to increase its revenue through extra taxation. If one calls on the government to spend more, one is in effect calling on the government to increase taxes. Calling on the government to spend more without raising taxes is like demanding that the government should perform miracles. It is equivalent of asking for more milk from a cow while insisting that the cow should not be milked again. But our refusal to admit the calling on the government to spend more is the same as calling on the government to raise taxes shows that we fully realize the difficulties of increasing taxes. We realize that the cow has no more milk. That is what the people find. That is that the people find it difficult to pay more taxes. Just a minute. We know that the cow would like to have more milk herself, so that the calves could drink it. Or that she would like more milk, which could be sold to provide more comfort for herself or her calves. But knowing all things which could be done with more milk does not alter the fact that the cow has no more milk. All right. I'm going to read this entire thing in the next block. I'm going to be back in just a minute. I just got to pee. Be back in a minute. So please stand by. I am the back. Right. Let's see. So, just to recap, we talked about in the last session, which is what was the name of this? The policy of self-reliance. He's saying, well, everybody's asking for more money, and that is true. To do development, you need money. And he's saying, and I don't know the answer yet. I'm actually interested in finding out what Nyerere says. And he's so far he's saying, well, everybody wants to do developmental projects and they're great and good and all of that stuff, but they also cost money and everybody wants money. And I'm like, Comrade Nyerere, you are being right. Just so far I'm interested in hearing what he has to say beyond this. Right now he's just saying government just doesn't have money, and he's talking about the Tanganyikan government at this point. Zanzibar has not yet entered the union, so I'm wondering, like, what is the answer, comrade? If the answer is not money, then what is the answer, right? So let's see if Comrade Nyerere tells us what is the answer if there are to be done developmental projects, but the government, as he says, has no money, right? What do we do then? Let's find out. Let me just make a note of this. Let's see, Nyerere says that we have linked money to development as if no development can happen without money. Ministers want money from Fed to do development, but federal government can't extra money without right. So Nyerere says that we have essentially just linked development to money, as if like there is no money, then there can be no development. And that the ministers, that is the Tanganyikan, later Tanzanian ministers, are asking for more money to do more development. He's saying, well, the government can't give you more money unless it raises taxes. And this is, I just want to say this, you cannot look at this as a right-wing argument, being like, well, see, he's also saying don't raise taxes. No, he's saying this is a country of peasants and farmers, so we can't just raise taxes on them because those people are barely making anything, if anything at all. So far that's what he's saying. I don't know his answer yet. So let's get to it. Let's see if Comrade Nyerere gives us the answer. Next part is, what if external aid? Alright, one method we use to try and avoid the recognition of the need to increase taxes if we want to have more money for development is to think in terms of getting extra money from outside Tanzania. Okay, so Zanzibar has joined Tanganyika because now he's calling it Tanzania. Such external finance falls into three main categories. Gifts, number one. This means that another government gives our government a sum of money as a free gift for a particular development scheme. Sometimes it may be an institution in another country gives our government, or an institution in our country, financial help for development programs. Things like what GDR, that's the German Democratic Republic, East Germany did for Zanzibar and also for Tanganyika. Loans, number two. The greater portion of financial help we expect to get from outside is not in the form of gifts or charity, but in the form of loans. A foreign government or a foreign institution such as a bank lends our government money for the purpose of development. Such a loan has a repayment condition attached to it, covering such factors as time period for which it is available and the rate of interest. Numero tres. Private investment. The third category of financial help is also greater than the first. This takes a form of investment in our country by individuals or companies from outside. The important condition which such private investors have in mind is that the enterprise into which they put their money should bring them profit, that our government should permit them to repatriate these profits. They also prefer to invest in a country whose policies they agree with and which will safeguard their economic interests. Alright, so he is starting to give us some answers. They may not be answers we like, nonetheless, they are answers. So the question that Nyerere raised was, everybody wants developmental money, and he's talking about his ministers within his own government. He said, these guys are bringing these great developmental projects, and they're asking for money, and they're getting mad at our financial minister, our finance minister, because they're getting mad that the finance minister is not giving them money. He's saying, well, the truth is the government has no money, and we can't raise more money unless we raise taxes, which you don't want us to do because this is a country of peasants and farmers. There's only so much you can tax out of them. So second, all right. All right. So, where were we? So far he said, well, one of the methods that is brought up to raise more money is gifts. That is when our other governments, sovereign governments, give us gifts for development program. Loans are loans. Banks and institutions of other countries give us loans for the purpose of repayment, and then we pay them interest, and so on and so on. Private investment is number three. All right. And then he said the third one is private investment, and private investment is, well, private investment. Foreign private industry, company, and so on will come and invest in your country, and the requirement being that their investment be safeguarded and they be allowed to repatriate their profits to their country of origin. Fairly simple to follow through. In the text so far, that is. These three are the main categories of external finance, and there is in Tanzania a fantastic amount of talk about getting money from outside. Our government and different groups of our leaders never stop thinking about methods of getting finance from abroad. And if we get money, or even if we just get a promise of it, our newspapers, our radios, and our leaders all advertise the fact in order that every person shall know that salvation is coming or is on the way. If we receive a girt, we announce it. It's a gift. If we receive a gift, they've just mistyped it. If we receive a gift, we announce it. If we receive a loan, we announce it. If we get a new factory, we announce it, and always loudly. In the same way, when we get a promise of a gift, a loan, or a new industry, we make an announcement of the promise. But when we have merely started discussion with a foreign government or institution for a gift, loan, or a new industry, we make an announcement, even though we do not know the outcome of the discussion. Why do we do all this? Because we want people to know that we have started discussions which will bring prosperity. All right. Very well said. I don't know what I can add to that. That was very concise, very well laid out. That I think is also very fairly easy to follow. So let me just make a note of this. So Nyerere summarizes three forms of foreign aid. That is gift, loan, private investment. And then he says even that the most abstract discussion of these externally is widely told to the people because Alright, he's saying so even if we have like very preliminary discussions about getting a gift, a loan, or a private investment, we tell it far and loud to our people in the country because that is the expectation. And then also conversely, the leaders want the people to know that they are engaged in conversations where they will be bringing prosperity to the country. Essentially, that's what he's saying. Good stuff, good stuff. All right, let's read this. Do not let us depend on money, upon money for development. It's getting good, getting good. It is stupid to rely on money as a major instrument of development when we know only too well that our country is poor. It is equally stupid. Indeed, it is even more stupid for us to imagine that we shall rid ourselves of our poverty through foreign financial assistance rather than our own financial resources. It is stupid for two reasons. First, we shall not get the money. It is true that there are countries which can and which would like to help us, but there is no country in the world which is prepared to give us gifts, loans, or establish industries to the extent that we would be able to achieve our development targets. There are many needy countries in the world, and even if all the prosperous nations were willing to help the needy countries, the assistance would still not suffice. But in any case, the prosperous nations have not accepted a responsibility to fight world poverty. Even within their own borders, poverty still exists, and the rich individuals do not willingly give money to the governments to help their poor fellow citizens. God damn. Julius Nyerere is going at it, comrades. He's saying that yes, we need to develop, but we have to be self-sufficient. And he's not saying it in like some right-wing Trumpian like America first kind of way. He's saying that we are a needy country, we're a poor country, and we cannot expect foreign nations to come in and give us or build us the amount of industry that we need to really help us flourish. That just won't happen. He's saying, number one, because there are a lot of needy nations, his words, in the world. Number two, that these countries can't even end their own poverty or poverty within their borders. How are they going to help us? It is only through taxation, which people have to pay whether they want to or not, that money can be extracted from the rich in order to help the masses. Well, Comrade Nyerere, there is more than one way, but because you are a Fabian, you don't want to look at those ways. All right. Even then, there would not be enough money. However heavily we taxed the citizens of Tanzania and the aliens living here. He's talking about the immigrants. I don't know if I like that word. It's probably something the translators used. Whatever. The resulting revenue would not be enough to meet the costs of the development we want. And there is no world government which can tax prosperous nations in order to help the poor nations. Nor, if one did exist, would it raise enough revenue to do all that is needed in the world. But in fact, such a world government does not exist. Such money as rich nations offer to the poor nations is given voluntarily, either through their own goodness or for their own benefit. All this means that it is impossible for Tanzania to obtain from overseas enough money to develop our economy. Brilliantly laid out. I'm just going to make a note of that. Alright, yes, and Nyerere points out that no nation will be able to help We'll be able to give enough to help Tanzania to develop to the extent that it needs to. He says that the rich nations can't even end poverty in their own borders, so how will they help us? So the note that I made, nothing particularly spectacular, comrades. All right, let's see. I think we're more than halfway through. Gifts and loans will endanger our independence. Secondly, even if it were possible for us to get enough money from our needs, from external sources, is that what we really want? Independence means self-reliance. Independence cannot be real if a nation depends upon gifts and loans from another for its development. Even if there was a nation or nations prepared to give us all the money we need for our development, it would be improper for us to accept such assistance without asking ourselves how would this affect our independence and our very survival as a nation. Gifts which increase or act as a catalyst to our own efforts are valuable. Gifts which could have effect of weakening or distorting our own efforts should not be accepted until we have asked ourselves a number of questions. Excellent point. Let me just make a point of this. Alright, so he's saying gifts that help us catalyze our own efforts should be accepted. Those that don't shall be looked at with a bit of a side eye. Let's see. Let me just highlight that. God damn it. The same applies to loans. It is true that loans are better than free gifts. A loan is intended to increase our efforts or make those fruitful. Our condition of a loan is that you show how you're going to repay it. That means you have to show that you intend to use the loan profitably and will therefore be able to repay it. But even loans have their limitations. You have to give consideration to the ability to repay. When we borrow money from other countries, it is the Tanzanian who pays it back. As we have already stated, Tanzanians are poor people. To burden the people with big loans, the repayment of which will be beyond their means, is not to help them, but to make them suffer. It is even worse when the loans they are asked to repay have not benefited the majority of the people, but only benefited a small minority. Right. Excellent point. Nothing to disagree here. No notes. How about enterprises of foreign investors? It is true. We need these enterprises. We have even passed an act of parliament protecting foreign investments in this country. Our aim is to make foreign investors feel that Tanzania is a good place in which to invest, because investments would be safe and profitable. And the profits can be taken out of the country without difficulty. We expect to get money through this method, but we cannot get enough. And even if we're able to convince foreign investors and foreign firms to undertake all the projects and programs of economic development that we need, is that what we actually want to happen? Had we been able to attract investors from America and Europe to come and start all the industries, all the projects of economic development that we need in this country, could we do so without questioning ourselves, comrades? Really, really good stuff so far. Really intelligent questions that I think everybody in the global south should be asking. Though I'm curious to see how he offers an alternative vision for this. I think things that he's saying are fairly uncontroversial amongst the global south, especially even within his time. Uh, Anti-colonial, sort of center left um, leaders, like even like Nehru, and so on. People who wouldn't disagree with what he's saying here. All right, let's look here. Could we agree to leave the economy of our country in the hand of foreigners who would take the profit back to their country? Or supposing they did not insist upon taking their profits away but decided to reinvest them in Tanzania, could we really accept this situation without asking ourselves what disadvantages our nation would suffer? Would this allow the socialism we have said it is our objective to build? No, it won't, comrade. Comrade Nyerere, going at it. I love it. You just double check to make sure the stream is working fine on both the platforms. If you don't know, this stream is running concurrently on Twitch and a YouTube. If you're not following me on both, give me a follow. I'm just gonna drop the follow links. So let's see, socials. Let's see. Let me drop the Twitch link in YouTube. If you want to give me a follow on both the channels, that would be mucho appreciated. Alright, how can we depend upon gifts, loans, and investments from foreign countries and foreign companies without endangering our independence? The English people have a proverb. Fuck the English. Okay. He who pays the piper calls the tune. Yeah, it's weird like them. How can we depend upon foreign governments and companies for the major part of our development without giving to those governments and countries a great part of our freedom to act as we pleased? The truth is that we cannot. Let us repeat. We made a mistake in choosing money, something we do not have, to be the big instrument of development. We are making a mistake to think that we shall get the money from other countries. First, because in fact we shall not be able to get sufficient money for our economic development. And secondly, because even if we could get all that we need, such dependence upon others would endanger our independence and our ability to choose our own political policies. All right. Oh, God damn it. Yeah, that's all good stuff. So far, just to recap, Nyerere is saying that number one, the level of development that we want to do within our country, it's going to require a substantial amount of foreign investment. Amount that even if he doesn't say every, but even if a lot of the big countries in the world wanted to give it to us, they can't. Number one, because there's a lot of poor countries in the world. Number two, because they can't even finish poverty within their own borders. How the hell are they going to help us? He's saying number two, even if we do get the funding that we want, we should look at it more cautiously and not just give away our, not just simply give away our independence, simply because it seems like a good, an attractive investment, I suppose. All right, so just give me a second. Alright, so he's saying number one, we can't really trust all the rich countries because they have their own. Number one, they're limited in what they can do. Number two, even if they could do everything that we need them to, there are a lot of countries in the world who are poor and deserve and need help. So what is to say that we will absolutely get the help that we need? So we should be discerning, I suppose, when we are asking for help. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that sort of summarization of how things went down, I suppose. Just looking at the images of Julius Nyerere from, I just saw the one that Marxist.org had. Just trying to see what he looked. I've seen his images before. It's not like this is the first time I'm looking at it. Alright, let me just take a break. We're halfway through. More than halfway through, actually. My throat is really drying up. Not a good, comrades. Doesn't feel good when your throat dries up. So, it's interesting. As I was saying, this is definitely very interesting. He's so far, just to recapitulate, just to condense and summarize what we have read. He starts off by saying, "Hey, this is the crux of this declaration, the Arusha Declaration, is self-reliance. Is to be self-reliant, independent, and not necessarily depending on global countries to tell you what is going on, or like to help you to come to your saving, essentially, right?" And he's saying, well, all these comrades we have, they are looking for money, and they've linked money with global development. And he's saying that's true, but also don't let it be the determinant in what you are considering development to look like, right? So that it means that and he's saying, well, you're thinking that just because you have money, we're just going to have, your assumption being that because you have money, you can do all this development. But what if you don't have money? He's saying, we don't have money. We're a poor country. We don't have money. Like, what do we do then? How do we do development then? Are you saying that because we don't have money, we can't do development? He's saying the only way we can do development based on what you're asking in our current circumstances is to raise taxes, in which you don't want to do. What leaves us with then are three forms of external aid, being gifts, loans, and private investment. He's saying gifts, we have to be more discerning about. We have to look at gifts and see, do these gifts, number one, that we are getting from other countries, do they allow us to continue doing what we need to do? If so, then we can take it. If not, then don't take it. Loans obviously come with some really restrictive requirements. Number 3 is private investment. Is saying, well, we have tried to do that. Like, we have tried to enchant, in a way, foreign investors to invest in our country, but they haven't so far. Why is that? And he says it's because they don't agree with our policies, and if we bring them in, in one way or another, we're just giving up on our dream of socialism, because they won't let us have the socialist system we want to build. All right, let's move on. We have put too much emphasis on industries. Because our emphasis on money, we have made another big mistake. We have put too much emphasis on industries. Just as we have said, without money, there can be no development. We also seem to say industries are the basis of development. Without industries, there is no development. This is true the day the day when we have lots of money, we shall be able to say we're a developed country. We shall be able to say, when we began our development plans, we did not have enough money. And this situation made it difficult for us to develop as fast as we wanted. Today, we're developed and we have enough money. That is to say, our money has been brought by development. Similarly, the day we become industrialized, we shall be able to say we are developed. Development would have us to have industry. What? I don't know. The mistake we're making is to think that development begins with industries. It is a mistake because we do not have the means to establish many more modern industries in our countries. We do not have either the necessary finances or the technical know-how. It is not enough to say that we borrow the finances and the technicians from other countries to come and start the industries. The answer is the same one we gave earlier, that we cannot get enough money or borrow enough technicians to start all the industries we need. And even if we could get the necessary assistance, dependence on it could interfere with our policy on socialism. The policy of inviting a chain of capitalists to come and establish industries in our country might succeed in giving us all the industries we need, but it would also succeed in preventing establishment of socialism, unless we believe that without first building capitalism, we cannot build socialism. All right, this is interesting. Because he's having essentially a version of Sino-Soviet split. He's saying we want to build socialism, but we don't want to invite capitalism in. Right, that was the big split. I mean, there's lots of layers of that split. The split in question being the Sino-Soviet split. One of the criticisms lodged by the Chinese, the Communist Party of China against the Communist Party of Soviet Union was that you guys are letting in capitalism. You have become essentially you're betraying the socialist cause. You're not really moving towards socialism. You've just invited capitalism back in. Mm. 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 All right, let's get back to it. So let us check how the streams are going. The streams are going fine. I mean, it's not as engaging as last time. Like last week, I had my biggest stream. That's, you can't go by that every time, right? All right, being a little bit self-critical. All right, let us pray and heed to the peasant. Our emphasis on money and industries has made us concentrate on urban development. We recognize that we do not have enough money to bring the kind of development we need. Development to each village, which would benefit everybody. We also know that we cannot establish an industry in each village, and through this means erect a rise in the real income of the people. For these reasons, we spend our money in the urban areas, and our industries are established in towns. It's fairly simple to follow, no need to break this down. Yet, the greater part of this money that we spend in the town comes from loans. Whether it is used to build schools, hospitals, houses, factories, it still has to be repaid. But it is obvious that it cannot be repaid just out of the money obtained from urban. It's obvious that it cannot be repaid just out of the money obtained from urban and industrial development. To repay the loans, we have to use foreign currency, which is obtained from the sale of our exports. But we do not now sell our industrial products in foreign markets. And indeed, it is likely to be a long time before our industries produce or export. The main aim of our new industries is to import substitution. That is to produce things which up to now we have had to import from foreign countries. It is therefore, let me highlight this. It is therefore obvious that the foreign currency we shall use to pay back the loans used in the development or the urban areas will not come from towns or industries. Where then shall we get it from? We shall get it from the villages or from agriculture. What does this mean? It means that the people who benefit directly from the development which is brought about by borrowed money are not the ones who will repay the loans. Ooh. Comrade Nyerere is getting saucy. He's saying, so the development that will happen as a result of these loans will be primarily happening in the urban areas, but we will be paying for it based on the exports we do from the product of the rural areas. So then the people who will be borrowing the money won't be the people who will be paying it back. All right, interesting. This fact should always be borne in mind, for there are various forms of exploitation. We must not forget that people who live in towns can possibly become the exploiters of those who live in the rural areas. All our big hospitals are in towns, and they benefit only a small section of people in Tanzania. Yet, if we had built them with loans from outside Tanzania, it is the overseas people of the peasants' produce which provide the foreign exchange from blah. Those who do not get the benefit of the hospital thus carry the major responsibility for paying for them. Tarmac roads, too, are mostly found in towns and are of a special value to motor car owners. Yet, if we have built those roads with loans, it is against the farmer who produces the goods which will pay for them. What is more, the foreign exchange with which the car was brought also came from the sale of farmers' produce. Again, electric lights, water pipes, hotels, and other aspects of modern development are mostly found in towns. Most of them have been built with loans, and most of them do not benefit the farmer directly, although They will be paid for by foreign exchange earned by the sale of his produce. We shall bear this always in mind. Still saying that the loans that we take will almost always be helping the urbanites, but it's actually the farmers and the peasants who will be paying for it, right? Which is an interesting thing. Like, people think that somehow only urban areas deserve. I'm talking about the developing countries such as, like, India, Pakistan, and so on. People think that only the urban areas should be developing. Not much attention is paid to the villages. Like, one of the things people just take as granted as well. Obviously, people are going to leave villages and move to cities for work, but why should they? Why should they? In a socialist society, that would have to be taken into account. That if somebody is in the village and they want employment and good employment, they should be able to get it there. They shouldn't have to leave their family and their lands just to go earn measly few dollars. Or I'm just making a note. For urban, God damn it. For urban development, but Alright, let's finish this. Although when we talk of exploitation, we usually think of capitalists. We should not forget that there are many fish in the sea. They eat each other. The large ones eat the small ones. The small ones eat those who are even smaller. There are two possible ways of dividing people in our country. We can put the capitalists and feudalists on one side and the farmers and workers on the other, but we can also divide people into urban dwellers on one side and those who live in the rural areas on the other. If we are not careful, we might get to the position where the real exploitation in Tanzania is that of the town dwellers exploiting the peasants. The people. That's what Bain says. Oh man, probably like another half an hour or so to go through this in its entirety. The development of a country is brought about by people, not by money. Money and the wealth it represents is a result and not the basis of development. The four prerequisites of development are different. They are people, land, good policies, good leadership. Our country has more than 10 people and is or more than 362,000 square miles. All right, so interesting. Finally, he comes up with an answer. Let's see. So there are 4 prerequisites according to Nyerere for development. People, land, good policies, good leadership. All right, so 4 prerequisites. Agriculture is the basis of development. A great part of Tanzania's land is fertile and gets sufficient rain. Our country can produce various crops for home consumption and for export. We can produce food crops which can be exported if we produce in large quantities, such as maize, rice, wheat, beans, groundnuts, etc. And we can produce such cash crops as sisal, cotton crop, coffee, tobacco, pyrethrum, tea, etc. Our land is also good for grazing cattle, goats, sheep, and for raising chickens. We can get plenty of fish from our rivers, from our lakes, and from the sea. All our farmers are in the areas which can produce 2 or 3 or more of the food and the cash crops enumerated above, and each farmer could increase his production so as to get more food or more money. And because the main aim of development is to get more food and more money, is to get more food and more money for more food and more money for our other needs. Our purpose must be to increase production of these agricultural crops. All right. So another answer: increase agricultural output. All right, so far he's just laying out a vision. He's not laying out really specific policies, and I don't expect him to. It's just a declaration, right? It's not a policy document. It's not a act of the... It's not an act of parliament. It's not very well laid out. Just a Twitter drama, or not Twitter drama, right-wing drama. Did you guys see Steven Crowder's nonsense coming out? Steven Crowder, that loser who's like, debate me, bro. Like, fuck off, you piece of shit. What are you learning in Muay Thai? What am I learning in Muay Thai? Interesting question. I don't know. It's just kind of they just tell us what to do. I don't really know the names of things. Today we were doing a lot of kicking, a lot of just like check and return, that kind of stuff. I really don't know the names of moves in Muay Thai, honestly. We have 101, 201, and 301 classes at my academy. So I'm doing 101. I'm getting more comfortable with my punches. The first few weeks were pretty rough. That first week or two were rough for punches for me because my left hook, so like 1, 2, 3, this was painful because I'm not used to punching like this. So I ended up being just getting really like weird angles for punches and just would hurt. So, but now it's not there. Now I'm more fluid with it. You just have to practice more. The more you do, there's a lot of stretching involved in this, and that just comes from practicing it more. As you practice more, your flexibility and your stretching will just naturally increase. And obviously you can help it by doing more stretching, more yoga, those kind of things where you're just more limber. But when I initially did, when I used to do martial arts back in the day, I mean 2012, 13, I was not very flexible person. And I did martial arts and gymnastics, and just like anything, you just work on it, right? And you will end up becoming very flexible and a stretchy person. I was pretty stiff in a way. So I ended up doing a lot of stretching and just like various different physical activities like gymnastics, capoeira, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, parkour, a lot of those things, and you just become better at it over time. But as long as you stick with it, your body is just going to naturally change, man. It's going to adapt to it. That would just happen. But yeah, so finally, in this reading, Nyerere gives us an answer. He has set up most of this. He's trying to essentially I keep blanking on this name, Arusha Declaration. In Arusha, he's mostly saying that that we have to do development, but and he's talking about Tanzania. This is in 1967. He's saying we have to do development, but we don't have the money. We should try to be self-reliant. Our first thing should not be to jump up and down and try to get to get any kind of aid from foreign countries. Julius Nyerere. Arusha Declaration. And then he says, he spends a lot of time doing it and talking about it, and he says we shouldn't, our first go-to should not be to essentially go to other countries and ask them to help us. And he says, well, there's 3 kinds of help you can get from a foreign country, and that's number 1, a gift, where a country will just give you a gift and say, here, do development, this is a gift. Number 2 is a loan, which you take from a bank, and obviously you he says for the gifts, he says we should be more discerning of them, and we should look at them case by case. We can see if the gift would really help us do along in our aims. We should take it. If it won't, then we should not take those gifts. We should not take those gifts. Now, number 2 is bank loan. He says, well, bank loan is a bank loan. We're a poor country. How are we going to pay for that back? So number 3 was private investment. He says, well, private investment is good, but you have to realize that you're letting back capitalism into your country where you're trying to establish socialism. So how far are you willing to give up that control? Because these companies coming into your country are going to want to repatriate their profits, which essentially your dream of trying to create a socialist society is going to either be stymied or you're going to keep corrupting it. So he says that specifically that where did this go? That essentially, if you do that, you're saying that you cannot develop socialism until you've done some form of capitalism, which is really, I think it's heavily inspired by the Sino-Soviet split, which was going on at this time. Sino-Soviet split being extremely extensive, but one of the things that was lobbed by the Communist Party of China at the Communist Party of Soviet Union one accusation lobbed at them was that you are letting capitalism back in. And Nyerere is saying that we in Tanzania are trying to create socialism for ourselves, and we shouldn't let capitalism back in. We should be more cognizant of it, and that's what we will do is if we let private investment in, we will be giving up some level of independence, and that is going to cause us to unwittingly or willingly let back capitalism in, which will set us back on our journey to socialism. And he says, then he talks about the split between the agricultural and the rural versus urban people. He's saying that, okay, so we take the loan, but the loan will be used for development, and primarily that development will happen in the urban centers. But the payment will happen by the product that we have created, that has been created by peasants and farmers. So the people who are paying for the loan will never actually get the most amount of benefit from it. All right, let's see. We're going to the conditions of development. So hard work. Everybody wants development, but not everybody understands and accepts the basic requirement of development. The biggest requirement is hard work. Let us go to the villages and talk to our people and see whether or not it is possible for them to work harder. This is an excellent point. In towns, for example, wage earners normally work for 7.5 or 8 hours a day, and for 6 or 6.5 days a week. This is about 45 hours of a week for a whole year, except 2 or 3 weeks leave. In other words, a wage earner earns 45 hours a week for 48 or 50 weeks of the year. In a country like ours, these are really quite short working hours. In other countries, even those which are more developed than we are, people work for more than 45 hours a week. It is not normal for a young country to start with such a short working week. The normal thing is to begin with long working hours and decrease them as the country becomes more and more prosperous. By starting with such short working hours and asking for even shorter hours, we are in fact imitating the more developed countries, and we shall regret this imitation. Nevertheless, wage earners do not work for 45 hours per week, and their annual vacation times does not exceed 4 weeks. All right, seems good enough. It would be appropriate to ask, let me just highlight the specific part. It would be appropriate to ask our farmers, especially the men, how many hours a week and how many weeks a year they work. Many do not even work for half as many hours as the wage earners do. The truth is that in the villages, the women work very hard. At times, they work for 12, 14 hours a day. They even work on Sundays and public holidays. Women who do not live in villages work harder than anybody else in Tanzania. Women who live in villages work harder than anyone else in Tanzania. But the men who live in villages and some of the women in towns are on leave for half of their life. The energies of the millions of men in the villages and thousands of women in the towns, which are at present wasted in gossip, dancing and drinking, are a great treasure which could contribute more towards the development of our country than anything we would get from rich nations. We would be doing something very beneficial to our country if we went to the villages and told our people that they hold this treasure and that it is up to them to use it for their own benefit and to benefit of our whole nation. All right, the condition for development, hard work. He's saying, well, hard work is talking about the working hours, which at that point were 45 hours a week for Tanzania. And he's saying, well, in the agricultural rural areas, women are working about 12 to 14 hours a day, and men are not working that hard. He's saying we should try to tap into these, number one, the rural men and the urban women who are not working as hard, and try to push them to work harder for development. Number two, intelligence. The second condition of development is the use of intelligence. Unintelligent hard work would not bring the same good results as the two combined. Using a big hoe instead of a small one, using a plow pulled by oxen instead of an ordinary hoe, the use of fertilizers, insecticide, knowing the right crop for a particular season or soil, choosing good seeds for planting, knowing the right time for planting, weeding, all these things show the use of knowledge and intelligence. All of them combine with hard work to produce more and better results. He's saying don't just work hard, work smart. The money and time we spend on passing this knowledge to the peasants are better spent and bring more benefits to our country than the money and the great amount of time we spend on other things that we call development. These facts are well known to us. The part of our 5-year development plan which are on target or where the targets have been exceeded are those parts which depend solely upon the people's own hard work. Production of cotton, coffee, cashew nuts, tobacco, pyrethrum has increased enormously for past 3 years, but these are things which are produced by hard work and the good leadership of the people, not by the use of great amounts of money. Let's read that again. The production of coffee, cashew nuts, cotton, tobacco, pyrethrum has increased enormously for the past 3 years, but these things which are produced by hard work and the good leadership of the people, not by the use of great amount of money. Furthermore, the people, through their own hard work and with a little help from the leadership, have finished many development projects in the villages. They have built schools, dispensaries, community centers, and roads. They have dug wells, water channels, animal dips, small dams, completed various other development projects. Had they waited for money, they would not now have the use of those things. All right, let me just make a note. All right, let me just make a note of this. See, Nyerere. Oops, so hard work. Basis. Nyerere. All right, just made my notes. All right, we are getting there, guys. We are almost done. Almost. All right. Hard work is the root of development. All right, I gotta go pee before I jump into this. This is a long read. Kaveri. All right, let's get to it. We are almost done. About 80% or maybe more through. Telephone on charge. All right. Some planned projects which depend on money are going on well, but there are many which have stopped and others which might never be fulfilled because of lack of money. Yet still we talk about money, and our search for money increases and takes nearly all our energies. We should not lessen our efforts to get money we really need, but it would be more appropriate for us to spend time in villages showing people how to bring about development through their own efforts rather than going on so many long expensive journeys abroad in search of development money. This is the real way to bring development to everybody in the country. I don't disagree. Let's see. None of this means that from now on we will not need money, or that we will not start industries or embark upon development projects which require money. Furthermore, we're not saying that we will not accept or even that we shall not look for money from other countries for our development. That is not what we are saying. We will continue to use money. And each year we will use more money for various development projects than we used in the previous year, because that will be one of the signs of our development. Just give me a second. It's going to go on mute for just a minute. All right, I'm back. Gonna be honest, I am struggling right now. This was a lengthier piece than I expected it to be. Stream's been running for close to 3 hours. All right, let's wrap up strong, guys. Let's keep going. All right. Whatever we are saying, however, let me just highlight this. Damn it, comrades. All right. What we are saying, however, is that from now on, we shall know what is the foundation and what is the fruit of development. Between money and people, it is obvious that people and their hard work are the foundation of development. And money is one of the fruits of the hard work. All right, so people are the foundation of development, money is the fruit of the hard work. From now on, we shall stand upright and walk forward on our feet rather than look at this problem upside down. Industries will come and money will come, but their foundation is the people and their hard work, especially in agriculture. This is the meaning of self-reliance. Our emphasis should therefore be on the land and the agriculture, the people, the policy of socialism and self-reliance, and good leadership. Things that he already mentioned. The land. Let me just actually make a note of this. So land plus agriculture, people, socialism and self-reliance. And number 4 being good leadership. Alright, so focus should be on these 4 things. The land. Because the economy of Tanzania depends and will continue to depend on agriculture and animal husbandry, Tanzanians can live well without depending on help from outside if they use their land properly. Land is the basis of human life, and all Tanzanians should use it as a valuable investment for future development. Because the land belongs to the nation, government has to see to it that it is being used for the benefit of the whole nation and not for the benefit of one individual or just a few people. It is the responsibility of TANU, that is Tanzanian African National Union, is the party of Nyerere, to see that the country produces enough food and enough cash crops for export. It is the responsibility of the government and the cooperative societies to see to it that our people get the necessary tools, training, and leadership in modern agricultural forms or methods of agriculture. Good shit. All right, the people. In order properly to implement the policy of self-reliance, the people have to be taught the meaning of self-reliance and its practice. They must become self-sufficient in food, serviceable clothes, and good housing. In our country, work should be something to be proud of. Laziness and drunkenness and idleness should be things to be ashamed of. And for the defense of our nation, it is necessary for us to be on guard against internal stooges who could be used by external enemies who aim to destroy us. The people should always be ready to defend their nation when they are called upon to do so. Good policies. The principle of our policy of self-reliance go in hand with our policy of socialism. In order to prevent exploitation, it is necessary for everybody to work and to live on his own labor. And in order to distribute the national wealth rarely, R-A-I-R-L-Y, is that a word? Let's see. R-A-I-R-L-Y. I guess they're talking about fairly. Yeah, it's fairly. And in order to distribute the national wealth fairly, it is necessary for everybody to work to the maximum of his ability. Nobody should go and stay for a long time with his relative doing no work, because in doing so he will be exploiting his relative. Likewise, nobody should be allowed to loiter in towns or villages without doing work, which would enable him to be self-reliant without exploiting his relatives. TANU believes that everybody who loves his nation has a duty of service, has duty to serve it by cooperating with his fellows in building the country for the benefit of all people of Tanzania. In order to maintain our independence and our people's freedom, we ought to be self-reliant in every possible way and avoid depending upon other countries for assistance. If every individual is self-reliant, 10 houses sell and will be self-reliant. And if all cells are self-reliant, the whole ward will be self-reliant. And if the wards are self-reliant, the district will be self-reliant. If the district is self-reliant, then the region is self-reliant. And if the region are self-reliant, then the whole nation is self-reliant. And this is our aim, good leadership. TANU recognizes the urgency and importance of good leadership, but we have not yet produced systematic training for our leaders. It is necessary that TANU headquarters should now prepare a program for training all leaders from national level to 10 house cell level, so that every one of them understands our political and economic policies. Leaders must set a good example to the rest of the people in their lives and in all their activities. TANU membership. Since the party was founded, we have put great emphasis on getting as many people as members as possible. This was the right policy during the independence struggle. But now the National Executive feels the time has come when we should put more emphasis on the beliefs of our party and the policies of socialism. The part of TANU constitution which relates to the admission of members should be adhered to, and if it is discovered that a man does not appear to accept the faith objects and the rules and regulations of the party, then he should not be accepted as a member. In particular, it should not be forgotten that TANU is a party of peasants and workers. Now, here we go. Finally, the Arusha resolution. The Arusha resolution. Therefore, the National Executive Committee meeting in the community center at Arusha, 26-1, that's January 26, 1967 to 29-1-67 resolves. So 26th January to 29th January resolves. What does it resolve? The leadership. All right. Second. Throat is dry again. All right. Let's do it, guys. The Arusha resolution. All right. The leadership. Every TANU and government leader must either be a peasant or a worker, or should in no way be associated with the practice of capitalism or feudalism. No TANU or government leader should hold shares in any company. No TANU or government leader should hold directorships in any privately owned enterprises. No TANU or government leader should receive 2 or more salaries. No TANU or government leader should own houses which he rents to others. Damn, alright. For purposes of this resolution, the term leader should comprise the following. This is how they're defining leaders. Members of the TANU National Executive Committee, ministers, members of parliament, senior officials of organizations affiliated to TANU, senior officers of parastatal organizations, all those appointed or elected under any clause of the TANU Constitution, councillors, civil servants in high and middle quarters. In this context, leader means a man or a man and his wife, a woman or a woman and her husband. The government and other institutions. The government and other institutions congratulates the government for the steps it's taken so far in implementation of its policy of socialism. Calls upon the government to take further steps in the implementation of our policy of socialism as described in Part 2 of this document without waiting for a commission on socialism. Calls upon the government to put emphasis when preparing its development plans. Calls upon the government to put emphasis when preparing its development plans on the ability of this country to implement the plans rather than depending on foreign loans and grants as has been done in the current 5-year development plan. The National Executive Committee resolves that the plan should be amended so as to make it fit with the policy of self-reliance. Calls upon the government to take action to ensure that the incomes of the workers in the private sector are not very different from the incomes of the workers in the public sector. Calls upon the government to put great emphasis on actions which will raise the standard of living of the peasants and the rural community. Calls upon NUTA, the cooperatives, TAPA, UWT, TYL, and other government institutions to take steps to implement policies of socialism and self-reliance. Membership. Members should get thorough teaching on party ideology so they may understand it, and that they should be reminded of the importance of living up to its principles. Woohoo! Alright. Just finished it. Just a recap. There's going to be a quick recap. Nyerere starts out by saying, yes, we need to do development. We need money for that. But everybody is putting money above development. And money is rather the object that comes or is the fruit of development, but not its basis. And he says there's 3 ways we can go Alright, sorry, just reviewing my notes. So, let's see, it's pretty decent notes from this session. God damn it. Alright, let's see. So Nyerere starts off by saying that yes, we are a developing country, we're a poor country, we need to develop. To do so, we need money. How are we going to get that money? There's a few different avenues for us to do it. Number one is we take gifts from a country where they just give us a gift and say, hey, here you go, do some development. Number two is we take a loan from a bank, a foreign bank, where they give us once again money to say, hey, here you go, do some development. Number three, you let it private enterprises. Problems he lays out is, number one, we should be cognizant of which country we're accepting gifts from and if that aligns with our larger goal of socialism. If it does, okay, take the money. If it doesn't, don't take the money or the gift. Banks, he says, yes, we can take the loans from the banks, but they have to be paid back and there's interest and so on. And right now we're not developed enough to really take on high interest loans. How are we going to do that? Number three, he says private enterprise, we've tried to bring them in, but the truth is that we are on a path to building socialism, and that we cannot really build socialism if we are willing to give these companies what they're asking for, which is they will ask for complete security of their assets, which they said we have given them. But at the end of the day, they just don't like the fact that we are on path to socialism. So the only way we would be able to bring them over is if we essentially capitulate to capitalism in the short run. And he says, we don't want to do that. We no likey, essentially. He's saying, I don't like it. We don't like it. We don't want to do that, essentially. And yeah, that's where he's at. And he says, actually, even if we do take the loans will be used for doing development in the cities. Cities are going to benefit the most from any loan that we take from any country or bank or institution. It would mostly benefit the cities, but the loan would have to be paid by the work and the export done by the farmers and peasants who will not get the benefit from it. So he says essentially this would turn urbanites, they would make them essentially exploiters of their fellow citizens in the villages. He says we should not do that. And he says what we should do is actually develop the capacity of our people in the villages and so he especially mentions two type of people. One, the male farmers, and then female urbanites. That they are not as productive because they don't work as much as they should. He says let's do that, and then also empower the people in the villages to take on their own developmental work and support that. And he's saying it doesn't mean that we are not going to do developmental work. We're not going to take money and loans from outside, but we should be more cognizant of it. And then essentially he's just laying out at the end, lays out the Arusha resolution, right? He's saying it's just this is what's going to happen is that we're going to focus on four things. That's land, people, policy of socialism, and good leadership. And then this resolution is just laying that out. All right, that was a good read. I think I'm going to call it now for the night. This was your first time joining me. Please join me again next Saturday for another Socialism Saturday. We'll continue with our readings of African socialism. We did Nyerere's Arusha Declaration. If we look again at Nyerere, good governance of Africa. Yeah, we'll probably do good governance of Africa next time. And then see what else we want to read. Maybe Amilcar Cabral. We'll read Cabral. We'll see. It's a little bit unsure what we'll do, but we'll take a look at it. But yeah, this was it. And if this is your first time joining, I do these streams pretty much every day. I do number one study streams, so we do study together using the Pomodoro 50-10, 50 minutes of focus work, 10 minutes of break, and then rinse and repeat. So if you want to join that, make sure to follow the channel. If you joined me today, thank you so much. And this is me logging off. And revolutionary greetings, comrades.